All right, so we'll go ahead and start with Nicole Bailey. I do not see her today. Andrea Chiribigo-Flor. I don't see her yet either. John Connolly.
I'm here.
Thank you. Leonard Dittman. I'm sure some of you may have heard he actually retired last month. We do have his replacement online. His name is Captain John Hahn. So welcome.
Thank you.
Trevor Forbes.
Here.
Thank you. John Hahn, we see that you are here. Thank you. Troy Hill, I think you indicated is not present yet, or maybe not at all. Jim House. Thank you. Nicole Ellis. Thank you.
I'm here.
Pierce. Do not see him yet. Greg Punsky.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Rich.
Here.
Thank you. Jeffrey Reister.
Here.
Thank you. Nathan Riley, myself, I am here, and Joyanne Rucha. Let's see her. All right, that's everyone. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate. And then actually, can we get a motion? Whatever, I'll put it forward. Putting forth a motion to approve the minutes from the 10-12 meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Anyone opposed? Okay. Minutes from the last meeting are approved.
We also need to do the 10-6 minutes as well.
Got it. All right.
That was delayed to today as well.
Got it. Okay. So putting forth a motion to approve the 10-6 2022 minutes. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any opposed? Okay. Those minutes are approved. Thanks. All right. Section 1. That section was primarily about the background and authority of the Public Utilities Commission. We did a great job on that, provided our names and all that kind of stuff. At this point, I'd like to open it up for any discussion or comments regarding Section 1. Mr. Riley.
Just a couple kind of 4 comments. I do think it probably is a good idea for me to share just the report. Again, this is the one that was circulated to everyone, just so everybody can see it. I'm sure they probably have their own copies with notes and stuff in front of them, but I think just one that we can all look at, I think would be helpful as we kind of go through here, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
And then as to my first more kind of formatting question is, do we want to number these different sections, so have it like be section 1, section 2, section 3, or do we just want to use kind of the header for each section, so like background and authority, or we could do both? However we do it, we should do it the same way throughout the entire report. I wasn't sure kind of the way everybody was leaning.
I'd say probably I don't have an opinion, and I'd be fine with including that and kind of what we're delegating to you as far as formatting after we're done.
All right, I'm going ahead to share my screen now. So let me know if this is not large enough or if you want me to zoom in a little bit.
Maybe zoom just a tiny bit. I can almost see it.
Okay, hold on. Maybe a little more. How's that?
Yep, that's good.
But I'm assuming we want to take this entire draft outline section out.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead and delete that. And I agree. We should put some kind of a header in here. Yeah, I'm not. Again, this is a report that's just coming to the commission, so I don't know that it has to be super formalized. But yeah, putting something in here. We could put like something like the date, or towing task.
Yeah, maybe to Public
report.
Utilities Commission from towing task force, and then a date or something.
Oh, so almost like a memo.
Yeah, kind of. I think that'd be fine.
Okay. Sorry. And be like, something like that. And then we could have a date here. Let's just put today's date if we're going to approve it today. Something like that.
Perfect.
Actually, write out the date. Okay. Everybody okay with that header? We can do something a little different if you want.
I think it looks great.
All right. So anyway, yeah, back to my point. I wasn't sure if we wanted to keep these, section. I know we broke it out for the draft and kind of for the draft outline. I wasn't sure if we wanted to keep it, if we wanted to take it out and just have it say background and authority, or we can keep the section ones if everybody wants. I could go either way.
Yeah, I'm agnostic too. Does anyone have any strong opinions on that?
Go ahead, just take out the sections.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. All right. And if nobody minds, I had one of my own typos there. So yeah, just so everybody knows, this section just kind of outlines the basic statutory authority, kind of how the task force was formed, the different members of the task force. So it has the initial outline of the different membership options that were available to the task force initially when it was first created, and then updated per House Bill 21-1283. So it kind of mentions the updated membership positions. I have a current roster that I think we agreed in our work group a couple weeks ago, or actually I think it was during our regular meeting, to go ahead and put this roster in here. So I basically mirrored what was on the website, the current Towing Task Force website. So I pretty much mirrored what's there. So all the current positions. I did have a question for everybody. If you thought, should we go ahead and include Captain Hahn in here as well? I know he's pretty new.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
Put him in. Okay.
I'd say if it's official.
Yeah.
It is official. So I'll go ahead and
yep.
Yeah, and he'll be the member actually voting today. So
that is true. Okay. Let me go ahead and just add him in real quick.
And welcome to the nightmare.
Yeah, we make sure and put his name, so if everyone ends up mad at us after this, they can call Captain On.
Yeah.
But I think maybe you should somehow reference that who's he's replacing.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I'll go ahead and so what we currently have on the Towing Task Force website is here. I'll mirror what we have there just so you can see.
So something like under Dittman saying retired, and then put Hahn and say replace Dittman.
Yeah, newly appointed.
And I know this isn't a big deal, but I would put Hahn directly under Dittman just for continuity of showing that he replaced him. You know what I mean? Instead of having somebody between them, so it's just real easy to follow.
Okay. Yeah, I had it in alphabetical order. We're really close to it being in alphabetical order the way you described, but it's just.
However, I just thought
Trevor's in the way,
but that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think with these little blurbs here, again, this is what we currently have up on the website with that caveat to both of those. At some point, I'm sure we'll knock Captain Dittman off there. But for now, at least in this interim period, while the adjustment's being made, it seemed appropriate to point that out.
Okay.
So, and then again, I have some sections here about our statutory authority. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I had one more little typo here. Hold on. Where is it? Here it is. All right. So yeah, that whole section. Did anybody else have any comments on section 1?
I did. I thought it was just the right amount of description, but not too much. So I appreciate that, Nate.
Yeah, we didn't want to blurb it too much. It's just kind of outlining what we're about.
All right. Any additional comments? Going once, going twice. All right. Does anyone have any motions related to this section they'd like to put forth?
Are we approving section by section or once we get to the end?
Yeah, I think we'll go through and not approve section by section. So we'll go
Okay.
through comments and motions, and include any motions that may happen before the end, and then we'll basically approve it in its final form. Hopefully,
Understood.
we hope. We'll see. All right, sounds good. Section 2, summary of, and this was you as well, right, Nate?
No, this was you actually.
Oh, that's right. This was a lot of this was that primer. Yeah, so this section effectively is the primer that that Nate provided everyone kind of towards the beginning of our first meeting. And so hopefully everyone got a chance to read it, but basically it's pretty long, but it's a play-by-play of kind of the history of non-consensual towing rates, the different rulemakings that have taken place, the outcomes of those rulemakings, who participated, those things. And then kind of wraps up towards the end, giving kind of some detail of the most recent developments. And I believe, let me make sure. And talks about the very recent rulemakings that have to do with the CPI adjustment. So that's kind of towards the very end and one of the most important parts. That's pretty much it. Any comments or thoughts on that section? Mr. Pierce.
Hi, thanks. I did have a comment just about the second section or second sentence in there, because it seems to endorse criteria, seems to have us endorsing criteria that I think in our subsequent meetings, we are likely not to endorse. So basically it endorses that the main criteria for setting rates are costs and plus an appropriate profit.
Can you,
and we had,
can you go to that second sentence, Nate, so we can see it? The second sentence of the section, Mr. Pierce?
yes, yeah.
So that's this one here.
Um,
I think it's that one. Here, let me just highlight.
no.
No.
Paragraph up, second sentence.
Starting with the basic principle.
Right.
So the
Uh,
basic principle of setting prices for regulated industries.
Is that the regulated fees should cover all of the relevant costs.
Okay.
Okay. So
oh,
I don't,
sorry,
I
this
don't
one here.
myself endorse that. And I think part of the role of us representatives of the non-consensual consumers would like to see additional criteria in place. So so I'll put in chat the sentence that I would recommend replacing that.
Okay. So let's thank you. What we'll plan to do is got that. We'll go through some more comments and then we'll move into the motion phase. And then are you you'll want to present this as a motion for section 2, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay. Any other comments before we go into the motion?
So when we have a, let's call it a substantive change, we're doing motions, or is it something where we just kind of want to
Yeah,
discuss it out?
I think if it's, unless it's like, hey, we missed a period or something, but if it's, Mr. Pierce, for example, has stated his purpose for this is to substantively change something. We may disagree on whether or not it does. But if it's something that you disagree with what it's saying or what it's representing, then I think we need to do a motion. And it sounds like Mr. Pierce believes that this is representing something that's incorrect in its current form. Is that right, Mr. Pierce?
Well, yeah, because it's as it's stated, it's not factual. It's actually an endorsement of criteria. And the factual part is what I'm putting in. Is I think this is the criteria that was endorsed. But whether we are endorsing it, I think is what's at issue here.
So, Mr. Pierce, I think just to clarify something for you, it has not been the case that the task force has always set rates. So this is a history of the rates, and often that has been done via rulemaking. So one might argue that you can say the basic principle of setting prices for blah, blah, blah has been this, because that's just a fact. That's not something we're representing. It's just an objective fact that over the past many decades, the Public Utilities Commission, when they've done rulemakings to set rates, which has generally been how it's been done, the intent of that was to take a costs into account to allow towers to meet their cost and earn a reasonable profit margin so that there's a towing industry that exists. So I don't think it's something we're representing. I think we're just stating what has been the fact in the past. That being said, obviously you have a motion, so we'll consider it. Mr. Reister.
I just, we'll do the motion, but I wanted to offer a potential alternative, which is one of the basic principles. So that way it's not as firm as a commitment, but acknowledges that it is certainly part of it, which I think Michael's motion also kind of includes. So I just wanted to offer that as maybe a simpler down the middle option. Oops.
What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Pierce?
That sounds fine. Also, your shift in tense from is to has been is also, I think, an appropriate change that could be used instead of my recommended language.
Okay, yes, because just to be transparent, I would vote for either Mr. Reister's or change the has been. The reason being is your motion makes it appear as if the task force has historically set rates, and it's not correct. Like that, it has not been that the task force has done that.
Right.
So if you, when we go into the motion phase, if you want to submit a motion that's similar to one of the two we just discussed, just so you know, I would vote for it. I think that would be a good thing to do.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Connolly.
Yeah, I was just going to expand on that. That no, the task force has never set the rate. We put recommendations forward. PUC is the one that sets the rates.
Yep. All right. Any other comments? All right, Mr. Pierce, if you want to, we'll move into the motion phase. If you want to type in a kind of abbreviated motion, or actually in this one, it's so simple. If it's just a simple one or two word change, you can just do it verbally. I think that's fine.
Okay. Mine would be changed is to has been.
Okay, and I'll second that motion.
That's one, and then Mr. Reister's suggestion I also wanted to adopt, which was the basic principle of setting prices for regular industry. Sorry, not has been, have been included instead of is. So.
Okay,
So
why don't you type that in? It'll make it just so I don't. Otherwise, I might say it wrong.
Okay. All right. It'll take me a second. So if we want to
No worries.
continue discussion. Oh,
Forever, sorry, I keep jumping in. As
no.
far as like motions, like, so as Michael's kind of typing it up, does it make sense if other members have motions to kind of just drop them in as we go? Then we can just kind of go through it, or would you rather wait until this motion is complete?
Yeah, I think if it's for this section, then go ahead and drop them in. But if it's for other sections, let's wait, because at least I'll get confused. So other people.
okay. Sorry, I have to get up a clean version. I don't have. I can't edit a non-clean version at this point.
No worries. If you'd like, Mr. Pierce, we can do motions for previous sections afterwards, so we can move on, and then actually, hang on, Mr. Reister just put something forward. Let's look at that and motion. Okay, so Mr. Reister has one. Delete.
Yeah, I see that, Mr. Reister. And actually, so let me just show you real quick. So this is section 2, and here's the kind of things I was doing for the different sections. Just very grammatical redundancy. So these are all the kind of changes that I thought would be helpful. Again, just for consistency with other language in the report, eliminating redundant areas. So you can see, Mr. Reister, there's yours. So again, I agree. That's redundant from the previous section.
So I'll pull my motion then.
Okay. So yeah, if everybody's okay, I can go ahead and make these kinds of changes to the report, either now or like I said, I'm happy to just paste all this in. If everybody's okay with it. Again, I'm familiar with the entirety of the report, and I'm pretty sure I caught all the, the redundant information, and, saying commission instead of PUC, you say Public Utilities Commission once and then PUC every time after, that kind of thing. So I'm happy to add that all in if everyone's okay with it. I have it here and in the other sections as well.
I'm fine with that. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Pierce has a motion on the table, and it would be to change that sentence to the basic principles for setting prices for regulated industries hang on. We'll let Nate paraphrase it a little bit. At the
So,
Public Utilities Commission.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's right.
That was pulled from the copy I downloaded.
Okay, let me. Retype and then basic.
I think the two changes that Jeffrey said was one of the basic principles and then has been. So if you just want to go off the wording, those are the two changes right there. One of the basic principles has been. And if we do a motion to do that, if Michael agrees with that, I think it was in the same spirit, then we can just kind of move on.
Okay, yeah, I agree. So Michael, is that what Brandon just said in line with what you're talking about doing?
Sure. If I heard it right, two
Perfect.
changes.
Okay, Brandon, why
One
don't
of the basic principles, and
Has
then it has been.
great. So Brandon, why don't you put forth that motion? Maybe
So-
Michael will second it and we can vote.
Okay.
And be,
So I put forward a motion to change the second sentence of section 2 to read one of the basic principles and then has been.
Mr. Pierce, do you second that?
I second.
Awesome. Let's do a vote, Mr. Riley. Thank you, Brandon.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Hold on. This is okay. So sorry, I must have missed that part. Can you tell me what the motion is again, please?
So
So
the motion is to change the second sentence that reads the basic principle of setting prices for regulating industries and take out the "for" at the Public Utility Commission is that the regulated fees should cover. It should read one of the basic principles for setting regulated industries at the Public Utilities Commission has been the regulated fee should cover, and then the rest of the sentence. So instead of saying the basic principle, it should one of the basic principles, and then should be after that has been.
All right, I get it now. So do we want to? I'm wondering how to phrase this motion in the.
So put one of the basic principles instead of the basic principle, and then and after Utilities Commission instead of is, replace that with has been.
Has been.
With is that has been to replace is that.
All right. I'm just wondering how to phrase this motion in a way that where people could vote on it.
I mean, just vote on it that way. Like,
Do we need to vote?
I put a motion forward to change the basic principles to one of the basic principles, and to change is after commissions to has been.
So I typed out what Brandon said. So the new version of the second sentence is typed out in the space bar. It's Brandon's motion, so everyone can just look at it.
Well, and this is why I'm wondering if we even needed to do motions for these kinds of changes.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with not. It's just Mr. Pierce seemed like he thought it was important and had a substantive change to the document, and so I wanted to do that.
I would say as long as there's not any if there's disagreement, then maybe we put forward a motion and a vote. If there's no, if you say, does
Good
anybody disagree with that, then we just keep moving forward.
Good point. Great point. Does anyone disagree with this?
No,
change?
that was my thought is why don't we just ask if anybody, has a problem with it? And if not, let's just have Nate, type it in and move on.
Okay.
And just make it a work in progress.
Oh, hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. Joyanne says she's a no vote. So we need a vote.
Historically.
All right. So let's go ahead and vote. So I typed in there, if you just see me at 4:33
I
p.m.
don't think she's a no vote because she wants to add historically. So historically, one of the, if we can add that, and if nobody has a problem with adding historically in front of one of the basic principles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and
All
let
right.
Joanne speak for herself.
Yep. Joanne, is that okay?
Hey, Trevor. No, I think it's more, instead of saying one of the basic principles, I think it is more accurate and appropriate to say historically the task force has. That's all. That's the old English teacher in me. But if it's going to cause a disruption in the meeting, just keep going. We don't have to vote on it.
Let's just go with the verbiage we just discussed, just because we're past 1/4 of our time already.
Okay. So with that change, adding the historically, along with all my little tiny grammar fixes, that's what it looks like now. So again, just little grammar-y stuff. I did have a comment here. Oh, you can actually see it. Let me delete that.
All right. So I'm good with that. Does anyone, is everyone okay with the change that Nate just made? Anyone have issues with it?
Nope.
Can we
Good.
pluralize principle, one of the basic principles of setting prices?
Oh, yep, you're right. Thank you.
Okay.
Cool.
I did have a question about Exhibit A. Do we want to, because I know we're going to add the primer as an attachment. Do we want to cut out the old towing task force report from that? Because that primer includes that as well. So I was wondering if we just wanted to cut that part of the document out and have it just be the primer itself.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like basically the primer includes the task force report, which is quite, I don't have a strong opinion. I would say leave it because it's an exhibit that they can look at. And if they don't want to read it, they don't have to, but somebody might want to read what the old task force did maybe.
I agree, because one of my next comments was going to be, I think we should cite the quote in the second paragraph, starting with the task force membership unanimously agreed. And so I think including that in the exhibit kind of dispels that concern because it's out there, just for like ease of reference and clarity.
Agreed. All right. What other comments do we have or motions to be put forward on section 2?
I had a question about the end of the second paragraph. So this part right here, I got everything with this last sentence here right up until the split here with the little hyphen there. Is that latter half of the sentence? And Trevor, I know you drafted that. Is that in reference to the previous task force report on page 13? And I guess the task force had recommended that the variables in the cost model be updated at least 3 years, and the commission just did not do that. Is that what that's in reference to?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a recommendation of the task force. I believe it just never was implemented.
Okay. Okay. And then the last question I had was in regards to, let's see, in the last paragraph, it seems to be addressing the new CPI adjustment. Did we want to say anything else about the CPI adjustment there? I know it's kind of referenced also down in the draft recommendations, but I wasn't sure if we wanted to say anything else about it here in this section.
I would say no, just because I think this section we're just wanting to stick to like just referencing what has happened in the past. Although maybe I wonder if I'm missing anything that we need to talk about what has happened besides that there were 2 rulemakings. It resulted in an adjustment. and why they did it. But I'm certainly okay with adding anything if anyone has any ideas.
Okay. Do we want to just make a real simple change to this part we were just talking about up here, where we say something like the task force also recommended that the PUC adopt a rule requiring its staff to review and update the variables in these cost models, and then like either a comma or a semicolon and say a recommendation that has not been adopted by the PUC. Just so,
Yeah, that would be more clear. I agree.
Okay.
Because it's a little confusing to read, actually.
Okay, I'll do that. Just comma recommendation that has not been adopted by the PUC. Okay, that looks good. All right, that's fine. I know we wanted to talk about the CPI, and so I wasn't
cool.
I don't know that the task force needs to take a huge position on it either way. I think just an acknowledgement of it and that it's a new standard that the commission is currently trying out is probably sufficient.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Any other comments for section 2? Going once, going twice. Any additional motions for section 2? All right. Let's go on to section 3. I think I wrote this, didn't I? Yeah. So this one's pretty straightforward. You guys can just read it really quickly. It just basically says that the task force was reformed when our first meeting was, the number of meetings we've had, in addition to the fact that we've had some working groups, and then a little bit on the fact that, towards the first half of our meetings, if you will, we mostly kind of discussed the industry in general and answered questions and all that kind of stuff. And then the second half, or even second quarter rather, focused on our survey and then working through this report we're working on now.
I did have I'm not tied to the title of this section. That's just the only thing I could think of to put into section 3 based on what it's about. It's basically outlining what we've done this year, more or less. It's a pretty brief summary, but it kind of outlines, some of the major topics we talked about and all that stuff pulled from the minutes, really, is what Trevor did here. And so my question is, do we want a different title here? So maybe something like current towing task force discussion or deliberations or something like that. It's just towing task force seems a little bland.
Yeah. What about towing task force activities?
Agree.
Yeah, like put this year's activities or summary.
Summary. I would put summary after that. Current task force activities summary.
Yeah.
So it's
Maybe
not
so-
really of our activities, it's just a summary.
something like that.
Yep, perfect.
All right.
let's
Anyone?
see.
I just want to stop real quick though. I want to make sure. Does anyone have any? When you make these changes on the fly, which I think is the way to go, I just want to make sure no one has any issues with it. Did anyone have any issues with that change? Great.
I did have a couple comments on. I wasn't sure. So it says February 9th, 2022 was our first meeting. I think it was actually January 26th. I know it was just kind of a meet and greet and we did training and stuff, but technically that was our first meeting.
Oh, yeah, good point. That's when we kind of figured out when we were going to have meetings and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I kind of did a count. And if we're going to change February 9th to January 26th, then we'd have to change 9 additional meetings to 10 additional meetings. And
do we remember that January 26th meeting? Was it like, posted and we had open meeting laws in effect and all that kind of stuff? Or was it just a meeting?
That's a good point. I think it was noticed. I'm almost positive. That
Okay. If it was noticed, then sure. Let's make it January 26th and change that 8 to 9.
Okay. Let me.
That's where we got all of our rules of what we can and can't do.
Yeah, training. Yeah, exactly. By the way, just a reminder to everybody, that is an annual training we're going to have to do. So I suspect we'll have to do it again in January. Just FYI.
Great.
Let's see.
Nate, could you zoom in a little bit more?
Yeah, give me 1 sec. That wasn't very much. Yeah, sorry. I do a little more. That good enough or a little more?
I can see it.
Michael?
Little bit would be helpful.
Okay.
I
I'll just do
laptop and it's hard to see
I'll
both
just do-
the chat and the screen.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, a lot better.
Okay, thank you. Give me 1 second here. Delete these. Sorry, I have comments and edits in my notes. Oh, one other thing. We actually had a Q&A session on March 23rd as well. So I wasn't sure if anybody wanted to, or if we wanted to add that in here. Because it was a meeting we had. There was like maybe 5 of us, if I remember. It was mostly Joyanne and me and John Conley.
Maybe just, that was kind of more like a working group. Maybe change however many working groups I said and just add one to that.
Okay.
And then that maybe.
Just FYI, these are the changes I made to this section. So just really simple,
Perfect.
grammatical kind of stuff. So let me just accept all those and I'll paste it all in. Just give me 1 sec. Okay. I'll get to that section. Okay, so let me just copy this real quick. Okay, so that'll change this to, oh, whoops, wrong one. There we go. Okay, and then we were going to change this to January 26th, which means we're changing this to 10 and this to 5. Pretty sure that captures everything, all the different meetings.
All right. Any additional comments?
Last one from me on this one is looking at the underlined and like the fifth line down at the end, the majority of members. It sounds like we only provided education and background to most of the members not possessing a background. So I think it makes sense to just rephrase it that to new members not possessing. So that way it's clear that everyone was kind of given the same baseline.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
So change the majority of to new.
Yeah, or
Okay.
something else. Not no ownership over how we want to phrase it.
How about the members?
Sure.
This is who wanted to join, right? So
Yeah.
offered to the members.
And that was I remember that Q&A session. It was available to everybody.
Yeah, just say it was offered to the members.
Okay. Did you say was offered to?
Yeah, the education and background was offered to the members.
Okay. I'm fine with that if everybody else is.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right. Anything else on section 3?
Any motions for section 3? All right. Section 4.
So this is the longest section. Just kind of as a preface, the first, few paragraphs just outline kind of how we put the survey together and sent it out, kind of procedurally how we accomplish this, before getting into the individual questions. And I kind of structured them in a way where it kind of regurgitates the question, indicates the basis of that question, like what information it was intended to capture, a summary of the data, or at least based on my analysis of the data and all the different means and maximums and some other things, and then kind of a discussion where we could kind of point to some of the things that particular data set points out, or the conclusion of that data, or if you want to even call it that. And then finally, in the final paragraphs, after all the questions are gone through, it kind of did a quick outline of the different limitations that people discussed. And I used some of the previous meeting minutes to do that, as well as from what I remember from the discussions. And then, so that's, we could always add more to that at the end. But yeah, that's kind of the structure, just FYI.
All right. Any comments on section 4?
Holistically, I would say that the summary of responses can get confusing when they're not broken down into charts. So like, I think we did that in none of them. So if that's fine with everyone else, that's fine, but it's just, it gets very convoluted when you're, stringing together all those various numbers. So a chart might make more sense.
So, and I thought about doing that. It was actually quite a bit of work to put even this together, but I figured that might be a little redundant just because we're going to be attaching the data to this report. So,
Understood. Okay. Then
okay.
Never mind.
Yeah, I would have loved to have some charts in here. I didn't have time. It took me, I can't even tell you how many hours to just put this section together.
Understood.
So, I think it captures the information pretty well. Do we want to put, I know I didn't put anything in here about, C, if we want to call it like Exhibit B, for example, for the data. I don't know if we want to put that maybe here at the top, or maybe just, maybe in this paragraph, or maybe we put it at the end. I'm happy to put that in anywhere everybody wants. But yeah, it is something I think we were all planning to attach to this filing. And I figured we'd just go ahead and attach since this is going to be, more or less a digital submission. I figured just attaching the worksheet would be sufficient. It's all public and up on the website anyway. So that's kind of what I was thinking, but I do agree that maybe we should put a reference somewhere that this is an attachment to this report. And I have more comments about how we handle the attachments we may want to apply here at the very end of the report, because that might be the best place for it. But anyway, if anybody has any ideas of where we might want to put a reference to the fact that the data that we put together, the aggregated data, is available and it is going to be part of the submission.
I think you could put it at the end of the third paragraph after no later than August 31st. You can do like responses are attached in Exhibit B.
Okay.
That might make sense.
Maybe like C. So I think
exactly. Yeah.
In the previous section, I think we what do we call it? Exhibit A. So maybe Exhibit B. Something like that. We could hold that. Something like that. Or maybe, or what about here? After the first sentence here. Maybe move it down there.
Yeah.
That works for me.
That maybe would be a little more, not as confusing.
And while you're doing that, Mr. Pierce, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I had a few comments. Just one was that I didn't see medians being included. I saw averages, and I think median is actually the more informative number. And so I was hoping that medians would be included. Then the other part was, and I don't know really quite how to address it, was at least in the individual question sections, was that in a number of cases, the actual core set of responses that were used was limbed down to a considerable extent because of outliers or misunderstood questions. And so I guess I'm wondering where to put that in. And if we're reporting on the data, for example, an appropriate way of doing that would be something like averages are calculated based upon 30 of the 46 responses or something like that. So I mean, as a data nerd wanting to get the the quality of this data more clearly expressed. I guess I'm wanting a little bit more of that. More to that point, some of that could be put into that last paragraph towards the end where it's just a general summary of the issues that we all had with the data, and that it could be relegated to that section.
So to my recollection, I believe the only data set where we pared down within that data set certain responses was here in question 8. And this is the sentence that I put in because when you actually add up the different total percentages, it equaled 91.43%, which illustrated that there were gaps in the data. And then here's the sentence where I capture that. I said, it's also important to it is also important, let's say, to note that multiple responses offered percentages that far exceeded a cumulative 100%, and as such were excluded from the averages, though not from the overall data. So I think that captured pretty well what you're talking about. Is, we did, at least in regards to the averages that we calculated, or that the spreadsheet calculated, we did pare some of that down, that some really high percentage that would have skewed the rest of the data that weren't. And again, I know we discussed this quite a bit in some of our previous meetings. So this is where I put it.
Okay.
We could always elaborate more down here in this section here, where we kind of outline some of our concerns. We can always add more here if you think that would help.
It may. So thanks. I think you addressed the main part.
Okay, great.
What I still would like to see is the median numbers, because again, because of how outliers can skew averages, I think the median tends to be the more informative number.
Okay. We could always put it in. It would probably take me quite a while to find all those different numbers and put them all in the proper places in here. Again, I would just reiterate that we are planning to include the entire data set here. So even if the commission is looking at kind of just a quick summation of the data, they can always go into that spreadsheet and see all of the data. I mean, all of the individual responses, not just the mean, but also the median, the mode, maximums, all that data is in there in the spreadsheet. So
Right.
I get you wanting to put all that in. And again, we always could do that. It would take me a while to look at the spreadsheet and splice it into all these data summaries. That would take a while.
Yeah. So I actually, my suggestion was less that. I just think that I would prefer seeing a median rather than the mean, because I think the mean is it doesn't give a good sense of where the actual figures are at.
What as a compromise, what about this? What if we just put a very canned statement in all of the different summary of responses sections for each question, or at least all the relevant questions, where it was something like, medians, modes, and other. I don't even know what you would call them. Are available in Exhibit B or something like that, where it's like again, because they are going to have the data set, so they're going to be able to check these themselves.
In the interest of ease, my argument would be it's in the exhibit. So like, it's not that they don't have the information available. So I feel pretty okay that they can get to it. But
sorry, don't mean to cut you, but what if we put median, mode, and other data aggregations are included in the data sets provided?
So hold on, let me pull up the data set real quick, because I'm pretty sure what we included, or what the spreadsheet captures at least, is excuse me. Yeah, it's the mean, the median, the mode, and the max for each data set. Yeah, and that's
Can you just-
basically that's captured for every question except question 2, which is the geographical demographic section.
Can you
or
put that
question.
in? Can you put that sentence, what you just said in, just saying that the median, the mode, and the max are included in the attached Exhibit D data set?
I just wondered if Michael would feel better about it if we actually just put a very canned statement in each one of these summary sections. So we could put it right here in between these 2 sentences. Right here, we could say other average. What is the mean, median, and mode? Are those average figures? Is that, or are they called something else?
Just statistical figures.
Okay, so something like
Data elements,
let's see,
statistical data elements, or something like that.
because I admittedly I did use the mean, the average for most of these summaries. So other statistical figures such as the median and mode are available in the
Exhibit.
exhibit, something like that. Would that make you feel better about it, Michael?
It goes halfway. From my perspective, this is the high level summary of the most revealing information of the survey, and again, I'm not real keen on the mean being used as the most revealing, but I don't want to push the point too much because yeah, because I think in the end the problem summary paragraph, if that can be stated in such a way that there was a lot of problems, then my main, then that issue tends to disappear.
No,
So,
I get
yeah,
you.
to be clear,
Okay.
Michael, so mostly you're just wanting to the using the median, I agree, would be better. But mostly you're just wanting to communicate to a reader that, like, hey, we did a survey, but just understand that there's a lot of variability, and this shouldn't be taken as gospel, and there's a lot of problems with the responses we got with the survey. Basically, you're wanting to clarify to a reader that, like, hey, this isn't perfect, basically.
Not only that it's not perfect, but that it is very flawed to
Yeah.
such an extent that myself, I have a hard time wanting to run with it.
What about this, Michael? Can you think of a sentence that we could insert somewhere that would communicate that, and we could quickly insert it? Because I agree with you on that.
I think
Sure, I
it'd be
think-
best in the recommendations, when we give our recommendations at the end. I think that's where we should put our opinions. That's our recommendations to the PUC, is to say how fucked up shit is.
Oh, actually, in conclusion too, actually, John's right. If you look at, and we're going to get to this section later, but in conclusion 2 and recommendation 2, it directly addresses the major flaws in the survey. And so maybe we could even beef that section up in the recommendation. Would that work for you, Michael?
That would be one of the ways of doing so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you good with us doing that and moving on?
Yeah. The other part is to get into that paragraph where we're summarizing the flaws, to include a number of other flaws. One that I saw that we didn't really have the time to discuss was when people are reporting on the labor and fuel and vehicle costs. We didn't distinguish in the question between the net cost versus the per unit costs. And so that data ends up being kind of unreliable and hard to use. Another part that that Joanne brings up that I also was hoping we were doing, which is that in any large set of statistics, you need to think hard about your outliers and whether you're going to calculate averages, given that you've got some fairly extreme outliers. And so a common tactic is to remove outliers to get better averages. So another concern I have is that there was no concerted attempt to identify and remove outliers.
Okay.
So
Is there a way you can, maybe we can move on, you can put this into some actual language that we can insert or a motion or something, because we have about 57 minutes left at this point.
yeah,
So I think we need to be very specific about anything we change.
sure, I can work on that, and
Okay.
and would love Joanne, because she's got good instincts. I would love any suggestions from Joanne as well.
Do we want to take the sentence out then, or do we want to keep it in?
Let's keep it in. I certainly don't think it hurts.
Definitely keep it in.
Keep it in? Okay.
Yeah, let's keep it in. And if Michael can, before the end of the meeting, before we vote, can come up with some like very specific language we can insert, then we'll do that.
Okay.
Okay, question 4.
Oh, sorry.
And I did have a comment, but on this section, but I want to wait till everyone else is done before I jump in. Any other comments on this section?
You said that question 2 didn't have, maybe not, it was the demographic. Like just making sure you don't paste it in where it doesn't belong, Nate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's. I think the only question is question 3 on the business locations, because again, there's no averages. It's just locational information. But every other question has a mean, median, and mode and max
Thank you.
in the data. Thank you, though. Let's see. I guess this would be right there. Five. Six. And
While you're doing that, Nate, Mr. Easter, I see your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. So the one thing that I was looking at and I'm probably backtracking a little bit, but in the beginning of the section where it talks about the number of responses, I was thinking it might be helpful to include the response rate, which I think is like probably a little over 5% or something. Just because our recommendation at the end says, essentially, we didn't get enough information. I think that really highlights it, that we were working off some pretty limited data there.
we have it right here.
Oh, perfect. All right. Never mind. I missed that. Thank you.
So yeah, but I ran the figures. It was about 5.8%, and I actually looked at the total number of people or emails, not emails, but carriers we sent it to, and then divided by. We got 44 responses, but again, 2 of them were duplicates, so 42, and it was like right around 5.8. So I just rounded it to 5.8.
Perfect. Thanks. Sorry for the redundancy there.
Oh, no problem. Okay. Anything else? Any other comments before we kind of go to the end of the question section?
So I've got, and actually maybe jumping ahead, I believe it's in, bear with me. Actually, it's at the end of the question section, so I'll hold off. Any other comments about the question section before I talk? Okay. So I had, hang on, I just saw somebody
I just put up
on.
text that I thought might be used as expanding out the concern section.
Okay, let me read that. And where would you have that put, Michael?
That's in the paragraph that Nate has up right now.
Is there a particular place in the paragraph you would want to insert these?
Gosh, midway.
Midway?
Yeah. Somewhere before furthermore.
And I'm fine with putting in that language. Does anyone have any concerns with putting in that language?
So it would be here. Hold on.
Sorry.
Hold on.
I got some grammar wrong. So distinguishing should
That's
just
all right.
be distinguished.
I can fix that. Give me a second.
Okay.
Let me just change it from Roboto font. I think it spilled over into this as well. Pretty sure we're using Times New Roman. Oh, sorry, we're using Calibri. Sorry. Why does it look weird? Oh, sorry, font size. Sorry, everybody, bear with me. There we go. Okay, so that should be better. Give me 1 second. Okay, does that look okay to everybody? That sentence there?
It's good to me. All right.
And then there's one other one here. All right, I'll just put it right after it if everybody's all right with that. Just okay. This was not included in the original data set, or this was not pursued
Sure.
in the original data.
Analysis.
Or yeah, that's fine. Analysis. Right. Do you like that a bit more now, Michael?
Yeah, that looks good.
All right. Anything else on the question sections? All right. I've got some comments on the section, the relationship between consensual and non-consensual tow rates. So I guess if you scroll down, Nate, I believe it's bear with me, kind of halfway through. Scroll down a little bit more if you can find the sentence. There. So the last sentence in that second paragraph on that page, when it talks about the difference, the scope of work. My concern is, I believe that sentence needs a little bit more elaboration, effectively. I hope Mr. Connolly doesn't get mad at me. I think he wrote this section.
Which yeah, this was John Connolly's section. Where are we looking?
So the sentence, it starts, the difference in the scope of work between towing carriers, and ends with losses, etc.
Got it.
So that's it. Yeah. So I wanted to flesh that out a little bit, because my concern is that to the layperson, and even someone who works at the PUC, like, Nate understands towing because he kind of lives and breathes it often, but a lot of them don't. And to that person, they're thinking just the act of hooking up to the car. And John's assessment, I think, in my opinion, is correct, that the actual assessment of hooking up to the car is often the scope of work about 30 to 45% higher when you use different equipment and dollies, and there's wrecks and you have to pick up stuff. And that act can be more, but I believe there's a lot of other costs that are specifically associated with non-consensual towing. that I want to make sure and capture and someone understands. Although unfortunately, it's hard for me to put a number on them, but I just wanted to highlight them. So I have a motion to put forward, which I will put in the text box, if you'll bear with me, and then everyone can kind of read that. See here. Hopefully when I paste it, it shows up. But effectively, the intent is to be a little bit more descriptive on what the cost difference are between those two types of towing. All right,
Yeah.
Mr. Pierce, go ahead.
If I may, I'm fairly worried about this section, and my comment may make your motion moot. I greatly appreciate what John has done here, and really would like us as a task force to use this in subsequent work. But because for myself, I have not been able to review it and start looking at it only recently. I'm very reluctant to want to give a thumbs up to including this in here. And just because I think there's a lot of information in there, I haven't yet been able to process it yet. And it seems to take a stance on what the appropriate ways would be of comparing consensual versus non-consensual. And because it seems to take a stance, and I think the task force as a group has not really had enough time to digest this, I don't want to give a thumbs up to something that I'm still just beginning to process. So I would recommend that instead of this, which again I really appreciate, and I think it's a great starting place for the task force to move on in subsequent meetings, I would think it would be better to put in something like the relationship between consensual and non-consensual hook fees is, or the difference between them is complex, and there's a lot that goes into the rates for non-consensual that would make them differ from consensual. And because of this, a more detailed analysis is in an order, something along those lines. But at least for me, I'm again, because I haven't myself had a chance to digest this, and because the task force itself has not had time to see this or talk about it yet, it seems to be very brand new stuff that I don't think we've had time enough to develop a consensus on.
So if you, Michael, this might help you. If you look at my motion, I actually took out the part that says 35 to 45% because that kind of implied some precision. And frankly, I think it's actually higher, but others may think it's lower. But the truth is that, and maybe this was your point, that we don't actually know for sure what that percent is. So my motion removes that and replaces it with just highlighting there's lots of extra costs associated with, but the very apparent costs that are just kind of factual. To include much higher insurance premiums, much higher labor costs because the job is extremely dangerous and more specialized, things of that nature, but removes the actual specific 35 to 45% figure. So just putting that out there. Mr. Riley.
I just wanted to point out, we have to include something in this section just because of the change in the legislation in HB 2213-14. It expanded what the legislature was telling us to do in this report. And part of that was to identify or at least, in some way analyze the relationship between consensual versus non-consensual tows. And I think this section does that pretty well. I don't know that there's really too much definitive in here. It's a lot of just kind of high level conceptual stuff, but that's where I like, what we did here. We took the data we actually have here in this chart and just outlined, hey, there are price and percentage differences here. And again, this is all based on our survey data comparative to what, and again, it's all using 2021 data. So again, what we asked for in the survey was what they were charging for different weight classes for drop fees, or excuse me, for hook fees in 2021, comparative to what the max rates for hook fees for non-consensual tows were in 2021. And again, then you see the comparative differences in price and corresponding percentages. So I think that's I think what they're asking for, or I think that meets that directive, kind of outlining this. The rest of this section I kind of took as just kind of an overview, high level conceptual type stuff. I'm open to modifying this language so people feel more comfortable about it, of course, but we need something in this section. We can't just delete the whole section.
Mr. Reister?
I agree with what Nate was saying. I like how we have the chart. And Trevor, as far as your suggestion, I'm comfortable with it overall, partially because it removes that 35 to 45%, because I had concerns about based on what. And that kind of goes into the way you wrote it out. I think including that it is clear might not be appropriate, just because it isn't necessarily clear at this time that the expenses are higher. Certainly the cost to perform the duties are different. But as far as I know, we don't have good data on the cost of also performing these insurance lots, et cetera. So if we removed clear from that, I'm comfortable, but I just wanted people to kind of know where I'm standing right now.
Okay. So, Mr. Pierce, I see your hand up again.
Well, so in the chart, one of the issues that I have is also that we're using mean rather than median. And looking at the data for the hook rates, the mean is actually pretty clearly skewed by a few very large hook fees, and the median, as well as the mode, are give you very different comparisons. So again, if we're going to do a fairly high level presentation here, I would at a minimum do that. But also just going through the set of problems I have, I guess there's a lot of wording changes I would want to have in here. And the problem is I'm not seeing enough time for us to do that today. And that's why I'm still fairly uncomfortable. I get that we need to do it, but this is, I feel like there's a lot in here and we haven't had time to discuss any of it.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Pierce, but it kind of this falls into the category of called it is what it is. We have a report that has to be due November 1st, and we have these open meeting rules that don't allow us to kind of do it in an efficient way. And so, it'd be nicer if we had lots of hours to sit in the room together, but we just kind of don't, unfortunately.
Right, but we need consensus, and I can't give a thumbs up to something that has just a whole lot of changes that I would want to see first.
Right, understand.
If we can't go through those, I can't give my thumbs up.
Understood. Yeah, and then you'll certainly be able to vote no if you'd like to. Mr. Connolly.
Okay. Since I'm the one that did this session, that 35, 45%, those figures are my figures. Those are my company's figures. So just to give you guys bearings of where that came from. And this information comes from, pretty much my life in the towing industry. I can almost without doubt give you examples and proof of all of this. Here again, I've offered that field day at my place. We should take that up sometime, and I can show you where this stuff comes from. This isn't just pulled out of my ass. This is actually stuff that I've lived my entire life. So, trying to explain it to someone who does not live this life, that's the best that I could throw on paper to give a general correlation between the two, if that makes sense. If you guys want to pull out the 35%, 45%, the numbers like that, because we don't as a group have that as a benchmark, I am completely fine with that. I mean, I'm just saying, showing how there is a difference between the two, and there's a lot of other markets that change that consent rate that I didn't go into because they are very lengthy. When you start getting into motor clubs, a lot of tow companies where they run one truck, you look at our data, how many guys had one truck. And so the data with that one truck operation and motor club towers, that's going to be completely skewed when you're talking consensual tows in other areas of the market. So, I mean, there's a lot that we still need to go into on those. But here again, that's going to take this board to actually sit down in a real tow company and look at how things really work in the real world, not what your perceptions are.
Yeah. All right. Any other discussion on the motion I typed in before I put it forward? Mr. Riley.
Just real quick, Michael, if it made you feel better with this chart, it would not, since we're talking about just one data set, I can easily change the figures here to the median, which then would impact what these figures and these figures are, if that makes you feel any better about it. I'm happy to do that. I could do that real quick here with, I got the data set up right here, the spreadsheet. So I could easily do that if that would make you feel better about it. I'm good either way. I used the averages just because that seemed like the way to go, but I'm happy to update that if that's kind of what everybody else is thinking. I'm cool with that.
Sure, that would help a lot. Getting back to Mr. Connolly's point, and I just want to express how much I appreciate what's in this section, because I find it very useful and helpful and informative. I am still reluctant that we have to endorse this as part of our report, because we just have not had a time as a task force to walk through it. And this struck me as the kind of thing that we would be generating next year, and that I thought we were going to recommend that we do next year, rather than actually present it at this year's as part of this year's report. So my hope was that we would show something like what was in this chart, but basically punt with regard to the rest of the high level discussion, just because I think it's worth a whole lot more discussion and analysis and so on. And I think this is a beautiful start. But
so how about this?
We're at the beginning of the process rather than the end.
What if we did, okay, we eliminate it completely and just put it in a blanket, and put this kind of in a blanket term of what I'm trying to say is there are so many variables between the two that it's going to take longer for our group to digest and go through. We can come up with some fancy wording that basically just says there's a lot there to give a definite of why it costs X dollars here and X dollars there at this point. Does that make you better? I mean, because the information is there. I mean, that's the problem, is there is so much between the two. It's going to take a long time to have that done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that would be wonderful in my view.
I'm not opposed to that.
And that's part of the intent also of my motion, is to remove the 35 to 45%, because that implies some precision that, to your point, Michael, we just kind of don't have. And then my motion just basically highlights the stuff that we do know is obvious. We don't know, we can't put a number on it right now. Maybe we can later. But during our discussions, we've identified these areas. And so that's the intent of that motion.
Well, I think we're talking different levels of change here. I think John's Mr. Connolly's suggestion was fairly significant, which was basically to identify that this is a complex difference, right? There are many variables that need to be looked at. Here's what we have so far based on our survey. But this needs very serious look and future study by the task force or something like that. I think I hope I'm capturing your suggestion right, Mr. Connolly.
Yeah, I mean, if the group's uncomfortable with it the way it's worded, I'm fine with that. I mean, it's there, in kind of in a nutshell, that there are lots of different avenues there when you go between the two worlds and those two markets. And so if you guys want to reword it differently, I'm okay with all that. I'm not stuck 100% on this. I just threw that out there as a starting point for the group because no one was really jumping in that.
Yeah. So I put up kind of revised motion, but for some reason I can't paste enough in there. So like you'll just kind of have to look. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, but you'll kind of have to look at my different like actual pastes to get that together. But I'd like to put forth that motion in the event anyone would be willing to second it. Mr. Rich, I see your hand up.
Sorry, I think I was on mute.
Okay, no worries.
I was going to do something that was a little in between what Michael and then I think John tried to solve it with and what you put in there. And maybe putting in there that a assessment was done, a preliminary assessment was done between the consensual and non-consensual tows, and something to the effect that, here are some of the obvious differences. However, due to the time constraints put on the task force, we were unable to do a thorough evaluation of the cost differences, etc., and therefore more time would be needed to complete that task. And you could put in here then what are the actual, like some of the things you have in here are pretty factual, but it's why they're different, right? And how there's different costs because of it, but we're not putting any numbers or anything to it. So we're just saying, hey, they're different in this way. And I don't think, and maybe others can disagree, but as you guys being the expert, there's nothing in there that I feel uncomfortable with that doesn't make that cost difference. But we're not going to try to espouse what that difference is from an actual dollar figure and just say we need more time to do that.
Gotcha. What about actually when I put my revised motion there, I didn't include a change that Mr. Reister brought up that I thought made a lot of sense of removing "it is clear," and then about adding some of the stuff Brandon said in there. So apologies, but I'm going to revise that first sentence to include some of that stuff and paste it back in there with that 1 through 6, and see if folks agree with that. So, all right, so I'm going to put motion version 3.0. All right. So I just posted what the opening sentence would be. And then I will post the 1 through 6 expense categories that we discussed.
So just so that I understand the motion correctly, the general issue I think was the overall content of this whole section, and the item numbers that you're suggesting here. I'm curious, is that meant to just provide the high level summary to replace the more full discussion?
No, the motion is just to remove the last sentence in that paragraph that mentions the 30 to 45% higher cost. That whole sentence remove, and then replace with the language I just pasted in. Yeah, so Nate, if you could highlight that sentence that would be removed so everyone can see that. Yeah, so removing that sentence, Michael, and then replacing with the stuff that I just put underneath motion version 3.0. And it's kind of,
The only thing I would say is to take out the much higher and just put higher.
okay, yeah. So what I have posted in there, but remove much. I agree, Brandon. So are higher than those associated with consensual towing, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Hahn.
With what you've got there, does it make sense also with that second sentence there? Task force was not able to thoroughly evaluate. Just some language that says with the time constraints given, just to qualify the fact that it's not that it's impossible to get to, just within the time constraints.
Right. Yeah, I'd be supportive of that for sure, because that is the primary issue.
I agree.
Oops.
All right, so I'll make a revised first opening sentence of that motion, but the remaining 6 will be the same, and I'll stick that in there. But before I do that, does anyone have any other thoughts on that first sentence? That's something we might change to make it more applicable. Okay. Okay, so I just put the revised version of that opening sentence. And let me know when everyone's kind of had a moment to read and form an opinion. All right. Has everyone read it? Sorry, it's a little long. All right, so I'd like to put forth that motion. Does anyone want to second that?
I second the motion.
All right, we have a second. All right, Nate, can we do a vote?
So I'm sorry, I'm only just now seeing the motion.
So if you see in the chat box, Michael, where it says motion version 4.0, it's that sentence. The expenses associated with non-consensual towing are higher than those associated with consensual towing due to time and resource constraints, blah, blah, blah. And then underneath that, in the text, will be that 1 through 6 I listed.
Okay, but where is this going?
It will replace the sentence that Nate highlighted that has the 35 to 45% in it. So you delete that sentence Nate has highlighted and replace with my opening sentence plus the list of 6 factors. All right. Let's do a vote, Nate.
All right. right, so I have it as Forbes motion to amend consensual, non-consensual tow section as discussed. Is that okay?
Perfect. And that is the little thing with a triangle and a square and stuff, right?
Yeah, it should pop up on your screen too when I have it go live here in just a second. Okay, so we should have 12 votes. We currently have 8. I'll go. They're all yeses, by the way. So we have 8 yes votes, 0 no votes. Sorry, we just got 1 no vote, so that's 9. I'll be a yes vote as well. So it would be 9-1 yes no. Joanne just indicated she is a no, so that would be 8 yes, 2 no. I'm not sure who the one who hasn't voted is. So yeah, we have what was that?
We have 4.
Well, we have 12 people here, 12 members.
Gotcha.
So we currently have 10, 11 have voted. So there's one that oh, sorry, there it is. Okay, so it should be.
No, sorry, Nate, that was me. I figured out that was me voting.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so that's okay. We have 10. Okay,
Andrea's abstaining, so that's
okay.
That's the missing one.
So it's 9 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain, and that's all.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So that vote passes.
That's 12.
I think for the record, the of the consumers of non-consensual representatives, none of them have voted yes.
Okay, noted for the record.
Well, I'm a consumer. I'm considered a consumer too. So I
No,
would say-
non-consensual consumers is what I'm expressing. The people who are not consenting, the representatives of the people who are not consenting.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Brandon is. In fact, we towed Brandon once, not consensually. So he's a consumer.
Sorry, I misunderstood which group you were with, Brandon.
Well, he represents the apartment industry, but he has been a consumer of non-consensual.
private property.
Oh,
And so we're consumers of non-consensual, but we are kind of like we still represent them.
Okay. That passes, Nate. I don't know if it'll let you just like copy and paste, or if you want to just fill that in later, whatever's easier.
No, I'm doing it now. I'm just kind of restructuring it to fit in well with the report. It's all the same language though.
Gotcha. All right, Ms. Rusha.
Hi, thank you, Trevor. Can you please remind us if the votes are going to be in the report? That would like the votes that we're taking now, that would probably address what Mr. Pierce was getting at.
Yeah, it's a good question. I was actually just thinking about this. I think at the end, before we vote, when we talk about our recommendations, we'll also discuss if we want just the overall general, from the approval or disapproval of the report, how people voted, if we want to include that in as part of the report effectively, like if Nate had in.
Well, I think oh, sorry.
Go
No,
ahead.
I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It was the connection, so I thought you had stopped talking. I apologized.
Oh yeah, no worries. No worries. Yeah, but basically, I think at the end we'll talk about if we want to include people's votes. I don't have an opinion either way on that, but that might be important to include for sure.
Okay, well, I have a strong opinion. I think we should. It's also a matter of public record if somebody wanted to dig deep enough, but we shouldn't make it difficult. And if this is supposed to be a board comprised of different community members and interests, and we are having this much discussion, paragraph by paragraph, I think there is value in noting, very briefly, who voted to approve or not approve each section of the report. So I won't repeat myself at the end when we have that discussion, but that's why I raised my hand to ask. So thank you, Trevor. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Joyanne, just to be clear, our minutes do typically reflect our votes. So just FYI.
I understand. I just want to make it as easy as possible for the public and legislators and any interested party to understand. And I think that this report is the top line. So it's an extra few sentences.
So, so I'm splicing in that section now. Let me know what you think.
Okay.
So so the new section should be. Hold on. Let me see where it started. I think it was this right here. So that's the new section.
Perfect. Okay, I think that looks good. Thank you, Nate.
Sure.
Okay, guys, it is 5:45, so we've got to get moving. I'm okay taking us a little over 6, but I know some folks probably have to drop off and all that, so we need to get going. Are there any other discussions or comments or motions that are substantive for this section before we move on to section 5? Ms. Rusha.
No, I apologize. I had forgotten to put my hand down.
Oh, no worries. Okay. Mr. Pierce.
Yes, I think we didn't actually, I was unclear whether we had agreed to putting in the median versus the mean in the chart.
Oh, yes. I do have that ready. Give me 1 second. If everybody's okay with it, I'm ready to slice that in as well.
I'm perfectly fine with that. Does anyone disagree with that? If not, we'll just do it. Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the spacing on this one. It's
actually, Nate, in the interest of time and getting to the vote, oh, you got it?
Yeah. Hold on.
Perfect. Okay.
Let me just splice this in real quick, and y'all can take a look. Hold on.
We all knew this was going to take a little longer than the 2 hours.
All right. So it's been updated. So that's the new. Oh, hold on. Looks like it just. Okay. So this is the new chart right here. I'll delete the other one in just a second.
Perfect.
So, and the percentages actually went up. If you see the old one here, some of the percentages were a little lower. So this is the new median chart. So let me just delete this one. Okay. Whoa. Sorry. Don't know what just happened there. Oh, because that was highlighted too. Oh, I hope it didn't make it one chart. Yep, that's what happened. Let me just undo that. Hold on. I can splice that in.
Okay.
It's ready to go though.
Okay. All right.
Just real quickly on the differences between the average and the maximum, we just need to change that also to median or whatever you put in there.
Well, no, yeah, this one here actually is the maximum rate based on what the PUC rates are. So that would stay the same. It's this is just, we're just changing this column here to median as opposed to mean, the average, which is how it was currently. And it just, because these numbers changed, so did all of these numbers here.
Yeah.
That's the only change we did though.
What I'm saying though is it says difference versus average, but now it's going to be difference versus.
Like in that.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
and
yes.
so you
yes.
got to change the headings instead of saying average to saying the mean and the difference between it. Or
all right. Thanks for catching that, Rich. I'll change that. Yeah, I'll splice that in.
Okay. I mean, I think I'm fine. And if everybody else is, if you just doing that and we move on while you're doing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, feel free to move on. Yeah, oh, I know what to do. Give me a second. Do this. And delete. Yeah, for some reason, let me try to just do it with the data itself. Something's up with the chart. I'm not able to just splice it in as easily as I would expect. Yeah, I'll put it in.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, are we ready to move on to section 5, everybody?
I think that last paragraph we wanted to delete completely.
In section 4?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying basically because we have so much other stuff about that up top, maybe we just remove that completely. Is that what you're saying?
Well, at least that, I mean, we put there 64%.
Oh,
We also put in the differences. I mean, so you're probably gonna just delete that completely,
yeah.
right?
I'm fine. I'm fine with deleting that. I agree. Maybe.
Or the overall, I mean, the last sentence, maybe overall the average price or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm okay with deleting that last sentence if everyone else is. Ms. Rusha.
I'm sorry, can you explain one more time why we want to delete the last sentence?
It's based on the averages. It's a number I came up with and I put in there just based on this data here. But since we're changing it from an average mean price to a median price, it's no longer valid if we're doing it that way. So I'd have to run all the figures to figure out what that number is. And I think people just want to keep this section as minimal as possible anyway. So
I think then it would be more appropriate to just note that the chart has the median, but we did some of the work and this is the average. But I mean, or something, I just feel uncomfortable to completely delete that line because it was an important part of the bill. But I do hear what you're saying about consistency.
So that sentence isn't like, we're still addressing that part of the bill to address these things. It's just that one was an extra data point making comparison across weight classes. So it's kind of taking it a step further, but that 64% math is no longer referencing the chart up top. And so our thought is that it's kind of duplicative and we already have a lot on that. So let's remove it. But if you have like a strong opinion, I guess Nate could recalculate it if he needed to.
You don't even need to recalculate it. You could just enter another, line, like make it in the next paragraph. So it's a new thought. And then just note why we have, the work that Nate did, essentially.
Well, yeah, I tell you what.
I don't think you have to delete it. We can just explain it with a few more sentences. But if that's not where the team wants to go, it's not where we want to go. So I think if it's about to come to a vote, my suggestion is let's vote to see if people are okay with leaving in the information with an explainer before we even get into what the language looks like, considering time.
Okay, so you do or do not want to remove that sentence?
You just want to fix the data.
So I think we either need to leave the sentence, or if people want to remove it because they think it looks inconsistent with the data, then we just can add a qualifier to the sentence explaining where it came from.
Okay, I'm okay with leaving or removing. I don't care. Mr. Pierce?
I'm on board with taking it out just because overall the average price difference in first, I guess this needs more analysis before I want to come up with an actual hard number like this.
Okay, let's just leave the sentence in, Nate. I mean, it's not technically wrong. It says overall the average price difference between the two. That is factually still correct.
No, it is.
In the interest of moving on, let's just leave the sentence. Are you okay with that, John?
I just add per the survey data, something along those lines. I think that way
we could something like this. So like based on the survey data and taking into account all different weight classes is approximately 64%. That is an accurate statement. It's just it's just we're changing what's in the chart.
Yeah, does that work, Joanne?
Perfect.
Does that work?
I think that's excellent. I think that's an excellent idea.
Perfect.
Thanks,
All
Nicole.
right, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Nicole. All right. Anything else on section 4 before we move on to section 5? Okay. Section 5. Any comments on that?
I had a little bit of concern with the percentages that are outlined in sub point 1 and sub point 3. Kind of the same, that we were just talking about in the previous section, where if we're going to put a hard figure out there, it should be based on something. And this seems more like anecdotal, if anything. So I was a little concerned about that.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think I agree with you. This it came from, well, it wasn't anecdotal. It's the real life money that that we're losing in real life. But storage, I would just say significantly decreasing storage revenue. You just remove basically percentages. I think I would be fine with.
Okay.
I'll except for number 2, that's just a fact that it got reduced by 50% because 75 is 50% of 150.
Actually, I have some language that I wrote up.
Okay.
If anybody wants to see it.
Yeah, I have the same. It's at the very end in that last paragraph, but yeah, I have my typical red line here of just some things, if anybody wants to see them. So just some cleanup, and then added some additional language here in regards to just that we haven't really seen yet what the impact is going to be. Because again, it is still the new legislation is kind of in the early going. So we're basically in a wait and see kind of mode in a lot of cases with some of these new standards, because we don't know the practical applicability yet of the new statutory standards. So,
okay, so we do. Can you move the red line version back over real quick?
Oh, yeah,
there you go. Thanks.
Sorry.
Mr. Rich.
Yeah, so kind of similar to one of the other comments, if we're writing below that we don't know, the extent of these changes because they're so new, I think we have to eliminate some of the kind of adjectives. I think it would be of like significantly decreasing or dramatically reducing. It just has to say decreasing or reducing. If we know that that's a fact, they're going to reduce it or they're going to decrease it. But if you don't know if you're saying, but we don't know to what extent, you can't really say significant or dramatic.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I wrote this with I have ADA, and so to me it's apparent that it's decreasing. But
and you guys know it, but for us to state it as the task force with all these different interests, there's no way to substantiate. So then I think we can say that.
What if we put in a qualifier? So like instead of saying so like here where it says this has had an effect of this has had the effect of dramatically reducing revenue, you could say something like this may result in dramatically reduced revenue. So it may happen. It's possible, but it's not an absolute certainty. Something like that.
Or is expected to. Yeah, I think you need to change some of that. I agree. I was thinking the same thing Mr. Rich was saying. This has had the effect of, and then down at the bottom we're saying, but we don't know what the financial impact on towing carriers is going to be.
Yeah.
You can't have both in the same paragraph.
But part of the suggestion, as I understand it, is to remove the significantly and dramatically language.
Yeah.
Just use which direction. So it is likely to reduce.
So what if we did it like this, where it's like this, then we can still add the qualifier. This may decrease storage revenue for most tows.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is just if you just remove adjectives, I think it mostly cleans it up. It's the easiest way.
I think
that
once it changes fine.
Yeah.
And then this may reduce revenue.
I know Nicole had say is expected to.
Yeah, this one isn't a may reduce revenue. And Nate just knows this just from his experience. Like there's people who don't pay for their cars now. So there's like no way that doesn't reduce revenue. It's just like it does because they don't pay. And so I would just remove the adjective, but I mean it has reduced revenue. It just has.
So like that, this is expected to reduce, or it would be expected to reduce revenue.
I mean, I think it's going to have the same impact.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I'm fine with those changes as they are right now.
Okay. Because I don't think we just don't have any data, Trevor, to say you do.
Yeah.
As a task force, we don't.
True.
All right.
Okay. How's everyone feel about those changes? Anyone disagree with them? Okay. All right. Any other issues with section 5 or comments before we move on to section 6?
Okay. Let me just, I'm going to clean that up and splice it in. Give me just 1 second. If you want to move on to section 6, that's fine. It'll just take me a second.
All right. So while Nate's doing that,
Yes.
let's move on to section 6. Who has, and this is kind of the meat of it. So who has comments and thoughts on section 6 and wants to start us off? Mr. Easter.
So I think this goes in line with everything we just worked on. Starting on the second line of conclusion 1, section 6, says 2022 legislation decreased revenues for towers. I think that's just another may have reduced or there are reports of, but I think aligning with the previous language that we just worked on makes sense.
So I would say I agree, and actually there may be some adjectives in here that we should remove, to your point. But on this one, it's not something you need to measure, right? Like if you get paid $75 for something starting on August 10th instead of $150, it just reduces your revenue. Now it may not be clear to those without data if it's a significant decrease in revenue. That may not be clear. And so I think we should remove those adjectives. But I mean, the purpose of the legislation was to reduce revenue and to go after tow companies. And so it has done that. All right. What else? What other thoughts on and actually while I'm waiting to see if anyone has any thoughts, I'm going to read through here and see if there's any adjectives that maybe should be pulled out.
So remind me, what are we talking about? Are we talking about conclusion 1?
Just comments on section 6 in general. So any of those conclusions or recommendations.
I think we need to go through them one by one.
Okay. Let's go, Michael. Conclusion 1, what do you got?
Conclusion 1, I guess I have a few issues about saying we recommend that the rates stay the same. I think the position of the task force is we're not comfortable with making recommendations at this point to change the rates. The reason why I'm saying that is recommending that they remain the same is in my view endorsing the current rates, and myself, I do not endorse them. Rather, I don't think we have had enough of a discussion about what should be done to be able to come up with the recommendations. So on conclusion one, I would say more that the task force agrees that at this time there's insufficient information on which to make a recommended change, and so does not recommend any changes.
Okay. So my thought is it's a little bit semantics, like saying that we don't recommend something at this time because we don't have the information versus making no recommendation. Just to be fair, we were required to make a recommendation. But that being said, do you have a motion you'd like to make to change language in that conclusion?
I do have language to suggest. Yes.
Okay.
Joanne has her hand up too.
Okay, Ms. Rusha.
No, I apologize. I'd like to listen to Michael's complete motion first.
Okay, yeah, let's hear it, Michael. What's the motion?
So the suggested motion, okay. Let's see. It would read, basically the second language sentence is what would be replaced. And that would be, but because there has been an insufficient time to gather and analyze all the data needed to make a fuller recommendation, the task force does not at this time recommend any changes to current non-consensual rates for the towing industry.
Okay, could you type that in, maybe?
Sure, I'll paste it in.
Okay, Ms. Rusha.
If Mr. Pierce will entertain an amendment to his motion, I would like to say cannot instead of does not.
I think can we do those as two different?
I'm trying to save us time, so I guess.
No, I understand what you're saying. I just don't think that we can. It's just that we don't, right? We can do it.
Well, no, because what Mr. Pierce is saying is that we cannot make a recommendation because of the process data, etc. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to speak for Mr. Pierce. My understanding is that the comment is we don't have sufficient data or something was wrong with the process or whatever it was, therefore we cannot because of statistics, best practices, etc. So that's all I'm saying is that we just say that we cannot instead of that we don't make a recommendation.
Okay.
Alternative language would be.
But I do want to say that I am asking Mr. Pierce what he thinks about that language and if he wants to amend his motion. And if he does not, I'm not going to make a new motion.
Got it. Okay. So Mr. Pierce, why don't you take that recommendation on board and then type in your motion and we can move forward with that.
Okay, actually, a real quick question to Joanne. I think this addresses the same issue, but it's a little less strong language. It would be the task force is not in a position at this time to recommend any changes. Instead of saying cannot. I think that's fuller, but I'm curious if that would address what you were hoping to get in.
I think we're on the same page, and
Okay.
I think that's reasonable and appropriate. So, but again, it was your motion, and I appreciate you considering my feedback.
Okay.
I concur with both of them.
Okay. So we'll give Mr. Pierce some time to type in. Here we go. And where would that be inserted? That's the second sentence?
That
Or
would
where
replace the second sentence of conclusion 1.
Okay.
Sorry, Michael, which part?
Second sentence of conclusion 1.
Okay, so after burdens?
Right.
Pressures.
Yeah, it was pressures. I changed it to burdens just because it says pressures in sentence 1, so just to eliminate some redundant language. Let me change that. Hold on.
Gotcha.
Okay, so
I think you need to
Mr.
remove the sentence, the task force agrees that towing rates should continue. So that was a replacement.
Oh, okay, so that was replacing.
Yeah, so let's
Okay, sorry, I didn't understand.
on
how you
this
wanted to do
on
that.
this one on the conclusions recommendations, because everyone kind of got this, and I would think it reviewed it. I think on the conclusion recommendations, any changes, I think we need to do an actual. I'd like to do an actual, put forth motions and actual votes on it, because this is like the meat of it.
Okay. Hold
To
on.
Joanne's point,
Yeah.
right? She's gonna want to make sure that. Okay, so Mr. Pierce has a motion put forward to replace the second sentence in conclusion 1 with the verbiage that he just placed in the messages box. So
Is it sentence 3? I think it's sentence 3.
was it sentence 3?
It's this one here, right, Michael?
You're right. That is sentence 3. Is that the sentence, Michael, or sentence 2?
Yes, sorry.
That sentence. Okay, so,
Right.
excuse me.
Right.
So Michael's motion is to delete and replace sentence 3 with the text that he just typed in the message box. So that is the motion. Do we have a second? Ms.
seeing-
Rusha, I see your hand up.
Yes, I will second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. Let's do a vote.
I'm not getting the vote coming up.
Yeah, no, I haven't put it up yet. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
it takes a sec.
So I'm putting this out as place language in conclusion 1 as discussed. And all right, that should be live.
I'm not really seeing the changes on there on conclusion 1.
It's not typed into it. It's taken the third sentence that as it's written right there in the report and replacing it with the text that Michael put in the message board.
And then is the task force agrees that allowing rates should be annually, is that getting removed?
Yeah, that would be removed and replaced with Michael's language, basically.
Yeah, that he put in the chat.
Which pretty much says the same thing.
Well,
I would argue the different, like it's, you know, I guess it depends on the beholder. I think Michael's just wanting to weaken's not the right word, but be softer in what we're recommending, saying, well, we're not really recommending anything. Whereas the current language is more saying we're recommending continue doing what you're doing for now. And so one might argue it's semantics, but someone might argue it's not.
yeah, it's not one expresses an endorsement, the other doesn't.
All right, we have 7 votes so far. Oh, 9. I'll go ahead and be a yes vote as well. So it'll be 8 yes, 2 no. I think there's one that's not there.
The motion passes. Thank you. All right. So recommendation, that's conclusion 1, recommendation 1. And Nate, well, actually, you can just copy and paste.
I was going to say, yeah, give me 1 second to paste
Yeah.
this in
Yeah, I'll
just so everybody can see it. Are you okay, Michael, if I just clean this up just a hair?
Sure.
And while Nate's doing that, if everyone could make sure you go ahead and read recommendation 1. And you can go ahead and hop in the chat or speak up if you have any issues with recommendation 1.
Just a quick comment, and I don't know, this is just a small logic point, but whether or not we should be considering multiple indices versus an alternate, a singular alternative.
Yeah, maybe. I guess I don't.
I
think the intent of the recommendation is saying the task force is not convinced that the CPI is the best metric. Maybe there's some other metric that could be used, and of course that metric might be a blend of metrics, or who knows.
Right.
But
so it's a very small grammatical point, but
okay.
to remove an alternative index with something like one or more alternative indexes.
Okay, I'm good with that. Nate, you want to put one or more alternative indexes?
So where would I go? Right here?
Yeah.
So the task force plans to independently analyze.
It is that commission should study and consider utilizing an alternative index, change that to one or more alternative indexes. And that is, I don't think that's substantive at all. So I don't think we need a vote on that unless other people disagree and think we should. Ms. Rusha?
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair. So I might be reading this wrong, but my original recommendation when I brought this up was that the commission should consider like utilizing additional, or like exploring alternative. And I guess like when I read this sentence, it sounds like it's saying we shouldn't use the CPI at all. Does that make sense? I'm reading it that way, even if that was not the intent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading it as saying I'm just reading it. The commission should study and consider utilizing, in this case, one or more alternative indices, it should say actually, such as the blah, 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 blah. I don't know that says we should do away with the CPI. I think it's just saying, hey, commission, you should study and consider maybe using some others might make sense.
Okay, well, would you mind, do folks mind if we just add after alternative indices, like just put then the CPI, basically like just keep the CPI in that sentence, right? Like in addition to the CPI, we should consider using other alternatives like XYZ, however Nate wants to write that in.
Okay. How about this? At the very beginning of the sentence, we put, in addition to the CPI, comma, the commission should study and consider using one or more alternative indices. How about that? Would that work?
Yes.
Perfect. So
thank you.
And again, please raise your hand if you think this is something that's material and should be voted on. Okay. All right. Are we good to move on to conclusion 2? All right. Conclusion 2. Anyone have any comments?
Let's see.
All right. No issues. Everyone good with conclusion 2?
I just had a few cleanups for that section, but I
Okay.
can do those real quick.
Yeah, that's fine. Joyanne, I didn't know you were an English teacher in your past life. I'm nervous about you reading my writing now.
I'll give you a B++. Is that okay, Trevor?
Hey, in my world, I'll take a B any day. That's good.
You did fine. Thank you for all your work.
All right. So clean up there. Sounds like no issues with conclusion 2. Recommendation 2. Any comments?
Another small change. Rather than saying when and if more reliable data becomes available, I was thinking just more broadly, changing that with after a more thorough analysis can be done, which doesn't point to more data, but rather a broader spectrum of issues can be addressed.
So basically, after it says changes in future years, remove when and if more reliable data becomes available, and do when a more thorough analysis can be conducted.
Correct.
Would that be- Okay. I'm good with that, and I don't think it's material. But if anyone disagrees and thinks we should vote, let me know. Otherwise, Nate can just type that in.
I'm afraid this might be material, so apologies in advance. But
Okay.
Mr. Connolly had recommended that as part of the permit enrollment, that some statistical information was given, and that would give this entity a lot more legitimate information to use in the future. And I really am kind of disappointed that that's not one of our conclusions, is recommending that the PUC ask for more information from entities so that this board can have access to that information without trying to create something from nothing.
Yeah, Nicole, I think that's a good point.
I actually was going to recommend that for
Yeah.
our number 3.
So we basically tack that on to the recommendation on 3, John, is what you're thinking? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That's a good point. No, a good point, Cole.
Sorry, was
Thank
there
you.
something else you wanted
And
me?
if you want me to create a data point for us to vote on, please let me know.
That'd be awesome.
If I may, I'm seeing a need for two changes. One would be
Wait, hang on, Michael. For recommendation 2, or for conclusion 3, where are we at?
No. This would address both John and
Oh, okay.
and Nicole's points. So in recommendation 2, it would be to have a survey be included as part of the permit renewal process. Conclusion 3 would be that the survey would need to include information pertaining to consensual versus non-consensual rates. Do you see how the two kind of divide
Yeah.
up?
You think it'd be better in recommendation 2 then for the annual permit?
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, for the permit, and then in recommendation 3, it should elaborate that should include the kinds of data that would help.
Right. Yeah.
With distinguishing consensual and non-consensual rates.
On the rates or the cost, Michael? Because our current survey has
The cost.
cost.
Well,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Nicole, do you want to type up some language as we move through this for a motion? I think you said you might do that.
You got it.
Perfect. Okay. I like that.
Was there something else you wanted me to put in recommendation 2 I might have missed?
Yes. She's typing it.
Yeah.
No,
that's
not
it for now.
from
No.
before.
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. So while she's typing that, any other comments?
No. In recommendation 2, there was switching when and if more reliable data becomes
Oh,
available.
yeah. So
Shifting
Nate,
that to when a more thorough analysis can be done.
yeah, when it says when and if more reliable data becomes available, delete that and put when a more thorough analysis can be conducted. There we go. Good catch, Michael. Perfect. Okay. All right. Conclusion 3. Take a moment and let us know if you have any comments or concerns.
Yeah, just a couple cleanups for this section, not much.
All right. Not hearing any concerns with conclusion 3. All right, recommendation 3. Comments or concerns?
I guess I have issues just with the phrasing of this, and they're potentially substantive. So I would not say avoid using consensual tow rates at all. I would want basically a more thorough analysis to be done to see how to use consensual tow rates versus not using consensual tow rates. So so that's my stance on this. And so because of that, the way this sentence reads just doesn't fit what I would recommend.
What about, Michael, what about if at the beginning of the sentence, that recommendation we put, at this time, the task force recommends the commission avoid? Would that make you feel better?
Well, I have a question with that. I mean, I don't even know if the commission's considering utilizing consensual rates.
Well, we don't know, but
I mean, I wouldn't imagine they are.
yeah, I wouldn't suspect so, but nowadays it's hard to tell. Yeah, Michael, from my perspective, I'd be amenable to putting at this time at the beginning to kind of qualify it a bit. But I do feel strongly that it is, I mean, it's, yeah, I understand that like, it'd be nice to have some data, but just a common sense look at the difference between consensual and non-consensual towing rates makes it apparent that they're just not the same thing. And like, you don't need a lot of data to understand that. It's just kind of is what it is. And so I'm hesitant to kind of put language in that tries to make them think they're the same thing, given that they're just not. But I would be okay with putting a qualifier at the beginning and saying at this time, just to make it a little softer.
Well, that goes some distance. I guess my point is that they're clearly different, right? But they are also, it seems to me, comparable in the sense that if you can look at some of the factors that are listed in your amendment points for the non-consensual consensual comparison section, there's a way of analyzing this so that you can actually start to set rates based on consensual rates. There's formulas you could propose, and I think that's actually something we should an approach we should consider using. So given that, this sentence still does not read appropriate to me.
So I would say maybe there is. Maybe we could come up with some form in the future, but the fact remains that we can't right now.
Right.
But that's why I would say that a compromise might be putting at this time, and then you're leaving the door open to say, hey, you know, maybe one day it can be done, and we can some lines.
Yeah, I guess I would prefer just a more different approach to what the recommendation looks like. Is so building off of our discussion about the survey, what I would say is something like At this time, the task force does not recommend any changes reflecting the difference between consensual and non-consensual rates, but does recommend that a more thorough analysis be done of the factors that distinguish these rates, and that part of the survey recommended in recommendation 2 include gathering data that would help make the analysis.
Okay. So that's a pretty substantial, well, it's a lot of language anyway. I don't know if it's substantive, but would you like to put forth a motion for that? And write in?
I'll have to type it up. That's something I don't have prepared language for, but I'll give it a go.
Okay.
Well, I think they're both good, because we got to put something, we have to somehow get some data that is required. It can't be, it has to be something there at the time. That's why I thought the time of renewal, where we can get data from 700 companies, not 40. That's going to give us a lot more to work with. And we got to get some basics. So we can start small and just recommend that the PUC give us something small, and maybe we can build on it in the future, but they got to do something to help us. I think we need to capture that in any of our recommendations.
Yeah. Captain Hahn.
Is it possible to just add some language to the beginning of that statement, saying that absent further data, as suggested in recommendation 2, the commission cannot at this time, or does that make sense?
That was kind of my thought. It's just kind of at the beginning, just kind of qualified a little bit with something similar to what you just said. It sounds like Michael, that's not sufficient for him.
Yeah, I'm trying to write that, and thanks, Mr. Hahn. That's good language. I'm putting it in now.
And if that is indeed good language, I would like to have somebody get in touch with my high school English teacher to to mention that.
And just so everyone knows, the reason this is a concern is me and Mr. Connolly know, but we know that everyone else doesn't know, right? The average, consumer or whatever just thinks a tow truck is someone who picks you up whenever you break down. And my concern is that someone would look at this and be like, oh, well, when there's a wreck on the side of the highway, that tower should get paid $50 for that. And that may sound good to the consumer, but Mr. Hahn is not going to have anyone to show up to clean the wrecks up if that happens. And so I understand that, we want to make comparisons when we can, but I hesitate trying to imply that we can draw conclusions from apples and oranges, right? And the effects are very real. It's not just a consumer sometimes having to pay some money. There's a public safety issue here as well. Mr. Rich.
So I guess my question is like, what's next? Are we giving them these conclusions? Are we voting on these conclusions and recommendations? What's kind of the next step?
Yeah. So as soon as we get done with Mr. Pierce, I guess, is putting in a possible language for a motion. And then Nicole is going to have a motion as well that adds some language about a survey being added to permit renewals. And then at that point, assuming that there's no more motions, then I'll call for a vote to approve the survey as it is right now, with the qualifier that Nate can make some minor adjustments and grammatical changes and stuff like that. And then at that point we'll be done. And the report will be approved. Nate will make some formatting changes and stuff like that, and it'll be submitted to the Public Utilities Commission.
With all 3 conclusions and recommendations?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what we're doing now. We're essentially amending how they look now, so that when we get to the point where we're approving the entirety of the report, everybody knows what's being submitted.
Thank you.
And actually, while I know Michael's writing and there's Nicole, so I'll bring up one topic for people to think up real quick and form an opinion on of whether. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Nicole did type something in the chat.
Oh, perfect. Let me look here.
So is that, Nicole, is that to go in section 2? I think it was.
Yes.
Because it says consensual rates. And I wasn't sure if that was, I think it was the last sentence in recommendation 2. So we would replace that with the task force recommends that the PUC make demographic cost and rate data gathering part of the towing permit application to provide further information for analysis.
And that's replacing the last sentence in recommendation 2. Is that right?
That's my understanding.
No, that's just adding.
Just adding. Yeah, I think it's just adding. Is that right, Nicole? Just adding that to the end?
I had it open on my phone and I am on my computer, so I'm trying to like add one from the other, but I was recommending replacing that sentence that we will continue to research and analyze tow rates
That's the same.
with the recommendation that instead they gather those tow rates for upcoming towing task force, whether that's us or another group. By making that data available to us, it gives this group the larger ability to make better qualified decisions. And I mean, while I understand that Trevor and John, you guys have, you know, experience in this realm, it's like you can't base jobs off of my one experience or my, you know, the economy off of my bank account. We need broader data points, and
Yeah.
so that's
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I like, just for the record, I like Nicole's amendment. And so, and actually, if you're ready, Nicole, to put it forward, but let's just clarify that I think that's just, we can just bolt that on to the end of recommendation 2. Like just take what Nicole just put on there, put it at the end of recommendation 2, and that would be the motion. Is that right, Nicole?
sure, I am fine with that. And I was trying to still write more for number 3 because I thought I was supposed to, but if not, if Michael is working on that, I am happy to hand that off as well. But yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then Nate, I think since how Nate works for the PUC, you should write it to where you understand what the group's saying.
I even without writing anything, I know exactly what the position is. So, Nicole, if you want, I'm going to paste something in here. I took what you put in there and just restructured it just a little bit.
No problem at all. I'm amenable to whatever recommended changes. I went back and tried to add that the demographic, the cost, and the rate data gathering portion because that was kind of part of 3. I was trying to make it work for all of the different things. So.
Yeah.
I think we could put it in 2 or 3, quite honestly. But I'm fine with where you want to put it at the very end of 2.
Let's put it on at the end of 2. I think that's great. And Nicole, if you'll officially put forth a motion to add that language that Nate just typed at the end of recommendation 2.
I would like to make a motion that everyone look at the information that Nate typed for me. Thank you, Nate. And add it on to recommendation 2.
All right,
Thank
I'll
you, John.
second. I'll second that. All right, let's vote.
We need to vote.
Yeah, good question, John.
Yeah.
Is anyone opposed to adding that? I doubt anyone is. So, okay, let's just add it. I'll make an executive decision.
All right.
Thank
I will
you.
paste that in. Give me 1 second.
And then while he's doing that, Mr. Pierce, if you have your language motion for a new recommendation 3, if you could put that in the text box.
Okay. I do.
Okay.
Is that a replacement for the entire recommendation 3?
Yes.
I think it looks good.
Okay, given that we're replacing the whole thing, Michael, why don't you go ahead and put forth a motion on that? Because that is could be considered substantive.
Okay. I motion that we replace all of recommendation 3 with what's in the chat box from me. We need a second.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll give you a second. I was rereading it.
Okay, let's do a vote, Nate.
Okay, it's live. All right, we have 7 votes. Oh, sorry, 8. All yes.
For some reason, I'm not. Hang on, I haven't voted yet because it didn't pop up. I don't know why. Oh wait, hang on.
Yeah, you can always get to it through going through the triangle, square, circle, and then clicking on polls.
I had to
And-
scroll down.
And yeah, you have to scroll down to the. It's because we've done 3 already.
Got it.
Okay, so that's 9 votes. 8 yes, 1 no. I'll go ahead and add myself as a yes vote. So that'll make 9 yes, 1 no.
Okay, that motion passes.
All right, I'll paste that language in. Give me 1 second. All right.
Great.
Are you okay, Michael, if I just give this a quick cleanup?
Sure.
All right. Well, while that's happening, one thing we need to discuss very quickly. Joyanne has to go, but she's a no on the report. Let me see what else she said. She's no on the report. I think we can just count you as no now, Joanne. I think that's fine. And thank you. All right. So on the end report, I think one thing we need to discuss is if we want to, or even need to, maybe Mr. Roberts will have some thoughts on if we need to list everyone's vote on this report, because there may be some no's. And so I guess first I'd ask Mr. Roberts if there's something we must do or must not do, and then we'll talk about our opinions on it.
Sorry, real quick, Trevor. What's this survey referenced here at the bottom of this? Task Force recommends that the survey recommended and recommended. Was there a survey we recommended into, or are you talking about the data gathering from the?
We didn't really like number 2 didn't really reference a survey, so maybe we just change that to recommends that any future data collection stuff, any future data collection activities include questions related to this goal.
Maybe like the task force recommends that any data collected by the PUC as outlined in recommendation 2 include questions related to this goal.
Yeah.
That sound okay? Are you okay with that, Michael?
Yeah, that was the goal.
Okay.
Great. Okay. All right. Mr. Roberts, any guidance for us on putting who voted what on the report?
You guys can do whatever you'd like to do in that area. You can list
Awesome.
it or not.
Okay, great. All right. Does anyone have any thoughts? I don't want to speak for Joyanne, but I suspect Joyanne would vote to have our votes placed on the report publicly. Mr. Riley, I see your hand up.
Just a couple clarifying questions for the kind of the wrap up of the report. We put the header in at the front end. I think we got to put something in the back end as well. I recommend something such as
respectfully submitted.
Exactly. I looked at the last towing task force report, and this is what it said. Since you're the chair, Trevor, I think you should probably sign this.
Sure, yeah, I'll do that.
And then, so that, well, this will be the signature here.
Okay.
And then finally, I think we have to have an exhibit list, or let's say list, or just say exhibits. And then we'd have to have exhibit A, which was the primer. Did we figure out if we want to cut out the last towing task force report from that primer?
I think we decided to just leave it.
Just leave it in there? Okay.
Yeah, the consensus was to leave it.
Okay. And then the towing task force survey, aggregate data. And then do we want to add like a copy of the survey, or at the very least the geolocation map, or do we want to just submit the data, and if they want more, they can ask for it?
Yeah, I think if they want more, they can ask for it, and I suspect they will not ask.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Regarding having our votes on this, on the report, the final vote that we're about to take, does anyone have any strong opinions in either direction on that?
On the final?
Correct. Yeah. So like at the final report, lists our names and says if we voted yes or no to approve this report, given that there may be some people who vote no. Well, Joanne, for one, is voting no. Anyone have any strong opinions on that?
I mean, the report is, sorry, John, the report is, I mean, if we have enough votes, and obviously it would be much better to have a super majority of the members vote in favor of approving and submitting the report. But I mean, this is being assuming this is approved as drafted here, it will be submitted on behalf of the task force, even if people say if particular members vote no. Like that's the way it is. But I mean, I get Joyanne's position. It's going to be publicly recorded in the minutes anyway. So I mean, yeah, we keep voting records for every vote that we take. Yeah. And so again, if people want to know who voted which way, that information is totally available. So I don't really see a huge benefit to putting it in here. Depending on how the vote goes, it even might be problematic for the report, personally, is my opinion. But again, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think Joanne's concern was that, well, you know, like you know, folks on this thing represent certain kind of activists and constituencies and groups and stuff, and that they wouldn't want to be seen, well, just be transparent, voting the same way I do, right? Or John does. Just for the optics purposes. And so I think that might have been the concern. So she seemed like she had a strong opinion. I was just curious if Joanne's the only one who says, yes, I absolutely want it all on there, then I don't know that we need to. But if she feels that way, then maybe.
I don't think it belongs on there. I think it's theater.
What's that? Gotcha. Okay. Mr. Pierce?
Well, I think if I understood Joanne right, it was to get a sense that that because we do represent different constituencies, recording the votes also provides the Public Utilities Commission with a sense of who is in favor and who is not, and what the reasons might be. And so given that this is going to the Utilities Commission, sure, they can look at the votes, but I think the part of the idea is to say how the votes break down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
As being part of the information that the utilities can make use of as part of the report.
Okay. So it seems like, I mean, I kind of fall in the neutral category. I don't think I care either way, but I understand both perspectives. It sounds like Nicole has an opinion on it. Joanne certainly does. Michael does. I think we should vote on this because we're not in concurrence. So let's see. I'll put forth the motion, although I'm agnostic to the result. But I'll put forth a motion that the end of the report lists the task force members' names and how they voted on this report. I agree with that. Then you can vote no. If you do agree, vote yes. Or in my case, I'm abstain because I'm agnostic. And then we'll see how it ends out. Can I get a second on that motion?
I'll give you a second.
Okay, I have a second. Let's do a vote, Nate.
sorry, this is coming out as individual names / votes attached to report.
Correct.
All right, here it comes.
When we're done, I'd like to talk a little bit about the voting thing for the future.
Okay.
We got 7 votes so far.
And
yes,
I'm
yes. Okay. So we have an abstain. So that's 8 votes. I'll be a no vote.
And do we have anyone abstaining besides me? So Nate knows when all the votes are in. I guess just me.
All right. So we got 8 votes.
Okay.
It's 5 yes, 3 no.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, 9 votes with the abstain. So 5 yes, 3 no, 1 abstain. That's what we have so far.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure if any more are coming in or not.
Wait, now what's our total? How many we have right now? 12 people?
Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9.
Okay.
So that is everybody.
Gotcha. So we have 9 here. Oh, and remember Joyanne's well, I don't want to vote for her.
Not on this one anyway.
Yeah, I know what she thinks, but yeah, she's not here to vote. So, okay, so there's 9 of us on right now, and we have 5 yeses. Is that correct?
5 yes, 3 no, 1 abstain.
Okay, so we have a majority. That motion passes, and so Nate, when you get the report together and format it, if at the end you'll just list our names and vote if we voted to approve or not approve the report.
What are we going to put on there for people who haven't voted?
So yeah, it's like for Mr. Hill.
NA?
Yeah, Mr. Hill, for example, just put NA or just be like, abstained. I guess you didn't really abstain if you just weren't there. So I just say not present. Not present. That's what I would say.
Okay.
So, okay, all right, everybody. It is 6:51. We mostly have.
It's only 4:51 here in Colorado.
Oh, whoops! I'm in
That's
Georgia.
true.
I'm in Georgia. Sorry. Okay, so 4:51. Go ahead.
Sorry, real quick, Trevor. Do you want? I kind of already laid some of the groundwork for doing this, but is everybody okay? Do we want to put a list or a chart of something of all the current towing rates? I'm happy to splice that in somewhere. You just have to tell me where you'd want me to do it. I can do that. So similar to the chart we have up here for the consensual versus non-consensual tows, I can create something very similar to this and dump it anywhere in the report that anybody wants, if you think we need to do that.
I would say no, not necessary, just because mostly all the Public Utilities Commission members who is our audience here, like has it super available and probably has it memorized maybe.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Mr. Pierce.
Looking at the screen right now, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page that still needs replacement.
Yes.
What needs replacement?
Yes, the average price.
Oh, yes,
is supposed
yes.
to be to the median. Yeah.
Yeah, Nate's going to change that to median when he finishes up the report.
Okay. Nate, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I have it. I do have it here. That's the chart here. I tried to splice it in, and something weird happened with the chart. So I'll splice that in before we circulate the report for sure.
Perfect. Okay, everyone. So we mostly moved through it. I understand not everyone, the report doesn't look exactly like everyone wants to. And I think we all agree that given the time constraints and frankly, the format by which we must conduct these meetings makes it very difficult to do as good a job as we might like, but this is the job we've done. And we do have to submit this. So at this point, I am going to put forth a motion that I will type in the text box. Okay. Okay, I'm going to type it because I can't paste it. Actually, I'll just say it. It's pretty short. So my motion is to approve the report in its current form and delegate authority to Nate Riley to make grammatical and formatting changes as needed. Does that motion make sense to everybody? Okay. Can I get a second?
Actually, come again. I didn't.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. So the motion is to approve the report, quote, to approve the report in its current form and delegate authority to Nate Riley to make grammatical and formatting changes as needed. Okay.
Second.
Did I get a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Let's vote, Nate.
Sorry, what was you said? What kind of changes? Make is it grammatical
to
or
make grammatical and formatting changes as needed.
and I appreciate that extra delegation. I'll make sure and I'll make this as clean as I possibly can without changing substance, of course.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Nate.
Yeah,
Of
Nate,
course.
we appreciate all this stuff you've done for us on this. I know you got a day job.
I do. Thank you. All right. Votes coming now. Thank you.
All right.
And I'll be a yes vote as well.
Okay, and it won't be on here. Just remember that Joy Ann voted no before she left. So she will be a no vote.
Okay, so we have 7. I was a yes, so that's 8. There should be 9 votes. Oh, there it is. Got it. Okay, so we have 8, including me. You have 8 yes votes, 1 no
Okay.
vote.
Okay, and then we've got a handful of not presents that we'll list.
Correct. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that motion passes. Nate will continue doing the great work for us to get it kind of cleaned up or whatever. And then I guess, Nate, when you do that, will you circulate via an email the finalized version for everybody?
Yeah, of course. What I'll do is once I've cleaned it up, I should have it done by the end of the week. When I circulate it, Trevor, if you can please sign it and return it to me. And then I'll have some internal discussions over here and figure out the best way to officially submit this. So I suspect it won't be as complex as I'm thinking. So
Great.
I don't know that there's any particular proceeding for it to be plugged into, for example, but there might be one soon. So the commission may just officially accept it and hold it for the time being, and then reach out to the task force and say, hey, if you want, we have this proceeding going on. You might want to insert this information into here.
Great. Okay.
So that's what I suspect I'll do.
Awesome. Okay, let's do that. Let's go ahead. We'll take a break for November for meetings, given we got this report out. And then I'll circulate an email in the next few weeks to try to schedule our first meeting, maybe one in early December or possibly in January to go ahead and get the new year started. But we'll take a break for November for right now. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for the hard work. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nate.